Hello friends. So today I want to give you a brief introduction to Bootstrap Framework and so that you have a basic knowledge of about how HTML tag works and how Bootstrap can be used for responsive website design. So the goal of today's video is to create a website like this, which will have a simple header and three cards. So to give you a brief overview of about Bootstrap Framework, it's a framework which was built by guys at Twitter, and it is mainly useful for keeping CSS code as much less as possible and using an external style sheet to do most of the heavy work that is usually required in CSS. So if you go to the official website of Bootstrap, you will find a pretty amazing documentation. And as you can see in the quick start section, the first thing that they mention is to use a link tag. So let's just start coding and take things from there. Just pick up a folder somewhere in your computer and pick up your editor of choice. The basic markup of any HTML page is somewhat like this. In the top, we have a doc type tag which tells the browser what kind of website or web page we are trying to serve. Then every HTML website has a HTML opening and closing tag. Now the two other common tags are head and the body tag. And in the head tag, we have added two meta tags. So meta tags are usually useful for improving the SEO of website. So in this case, if you can see, there's a meta tag with a viewport attribute. Now the first thing that we are going to do, as mentioned in the official doc, is to add the link tag. So you can copy it from here and add it in the head section of the website. Next thing is adding a script. So if you want, you can add jQuery too, but the main script which you want to add here is the last one, which is bootstrap.main.js. So it's mainly useful for various internal bootstrap components like model pop-up or even a responsive header, and you need to add it within the body tag, and this kind of completes the basic template for creating your bootstrap templates. Now moving on to the main components which are useful in bootstrap are grid layouts, then model pop-ups and buttons and all. So just to test that bootstrap is actually working properly in your website, what we can do is we can add a div tag. So div tags are basically separator tags which you can add to specify that there is separation of elements. Now in this case, we can add a div tag with, let's say, some sample text, and you can add a class as alert. So alert is a kind of a pre-built bootstrap class which allows us to add alert based component in your website, and you can add alert primary. Now you can save the HTML file and open it in your browser. So in this case, as you can see, we have a bluish shade red alert which is present at the top of the page. There are various kind of alerts available on Bootstrap framework, so this was just to give you a brief introduction to it. So if you move on to the content section of the website, you can find various components which are useful. Sorry, component section. And the first component which we can see here is the alert box. So basically what we did was we added an alert with alert primary style attribute. Then there's are various other alerts available. So this is how actually integration of Bootstrap works, that you add a link tag and you start using the class names which are specified in the Bootstrap documentation, and one by one all those components can be used in your website. So next we are going to see how grid layout actually works in Bootstrap. So basically what you try to do is you create a row and you try to add columns into the row. Now I will just show a basic example of this before moving forward. Let's just start from scratch. So let's say we create a div with a class container, and we create a row and a column. Now Bootstrap has a built-in property called border. So the use of border property is you can actually add border to the div to see how it looks like. So let's just add it and see what a column actually is. So if you can see here, there's one column created and the column spans the entire width of the page. And the reason why it is not 100% is because we have added a container tag. Now if you go to inspect element and try to see, then you will find that the container tag has added some extra padding towards the end of the page. So that's mainly because it allows us to keep space from the sides. And here is our row and this is our column. So basically we can actually add up to 12 columns in a row, and the reason for this is it allows us to have a flexibility of adding multiple columns and keeping the width accordingly. So let's say if I add 3 more columns here with column 2 and column 3 and refresh the layout, we can see that there are 3 equisized columns created. Now the basic use case of columns is just to stack elements like this. And if you remember our website from the start, we have a similar arrangement. Now if you actually go to responsive website view from the toggle device toolbar, you will see that all 3 columns are lying one besides other. But most of the times the use case is that having such small columns can make it hard for a user to actually see them. So even I cannot see them properly right now. Now a solution to this is to use responsive breakpoints. So what responsive breakpoints actually do is they make sure that your layout looks at a certain width or height in a desktop orientation and in another way in mobile browsers or your tablets. So if we try to see that, so these are the responsive breakpoints that Bootstrap actually provides. Now, so if you want to, let's say, build a custom layout for mobile devices, what you can do is you can use a column SM tag and you can specify the amount of column spans that you want to cover. MD is for medium devices, LG is for desktops, and XL is for wide angle or really wide monitors. Now, as I mentioned, there are 12 column attributes allowed. So let's just try to make sense of these things via code. So let's say I have 3 columns, but I want the first column to occupy 50% of the width and the other two to occupy the remaining 50%. So what I will do is I will assign a call 6 to the first column. Now if I refresh the page, as you can see, the first column got 50% of the width and the other 2 columns have gotten 25%. So the reason for this was the entire column or the entire row is divided into 12 columns, and I explicitly told Bootstrap or my browser to occupy the first 6 columns for the first div and the remaining 50% for the other two. Now these are the basic way we can add widths to the columns. So let's say for a desktop I can have 3 columns of equal width. Then in that case I will just add call LG, and for equal width column I will keep LG as floor 4, and we again have equal width columns. And let's say for smaller devices I want the entire row to or the entire 100% width for a single column. So what I will do is I will add a call SM tag and I will specify 12. So 12 transforms to 100% of the width, 4 transforms to roughly 33% of the width, and if I add call SM12 to rest of the 2 columns, then we will see that in mobile browsers it renders differently than desktop. So if I go to responsive website now, we can see that The three columns are now occupying 100% width as opposed to 33% previously. And this kind of use cases or responsive breakpoints are useful, especially in making our websites responsive. So that kind of covers the grid layout. Now, as similar to SM, you can also go for MD tags for customizing the website layout for tablets. But basically, LG and SM are the two tags which are you are going to use heavily for creating your responsive websites. Next, let's start building the website which we actually saw at the start of the video. So if you go to the navbar section of the documentation, you will find how to exactly use navbars. So basically what you do is you have add a nav tag with classes specified as per device resolution. Now the area of interest for us is the responsive navbar at the end of the page. So this is the kind of navbar that is useful for us, which has a brand name, home, and a search bar. So you can copy the code from here and get back to your website and create a header section. It is good to add comments in code because it improves code maintainability. So basically it has a button tag for the left heading, and this button actually comes forward when we go for responsive design. Let's just make the theme too dark so that we have a black colored header. Next we have our navbar, so you can name it anything that you want. I don't need a disabled link, so I'm just removing it. And if you go back to your website, you will see a navbar like this. Now the next area of interest is to add three columns similar to which we saw earlier. So from our grid layout, let's get this layout into our main website. So instead of sample text, we now have a content section, and within this content we have three columns which are responsive. So we need to populate it with some content. So Bootstrap has some ready-made cards. A card which we want to use can be a simplistic ones, which is at the top. So if you see a card syntax, we have a div with a class card and a width of 18 rem. We don't want custom styling for cards or width, so I'm removing this. Then we have an img tag with an src attribute in which we need to add a URL. So find some image which you like and right click on it and click on open image in a new tab, and you will find the URL for the image. Next, copy the link and add it to your src attribute. So let's just see how it looks, and we can remove the border attribute. You can now see a card added there. And similar to that, we can add cards to other two sections. And we have cards added to our layout. And we have our simple basic level website ready with card sections. Now if you go to responsive view, you can see that the header got collapsed and it has the same links but in a breadcrumb mode or breadcrumb menu. And our cards got resized to 100% width and one below the other instead of one side by side to other. This was because we added call SM12 previously, and this call SM12 made sure that our cards get 100% width on mobile devices. So this kind of covers a short video on introduction to Bootstrap. Thank you.